Every breath I took was labored, every step a mounting challenge. The weight of desperation and the stench of decay hung heavy in the air. Once, the city had been alive with the hum of traffic and the chatter of busy lives. Now, the eerie silence was punctuated only by distant screams and the relentless moans of the undead. I remembered the early days of the outbreak. How the world watched in detached horror, thinking it was some distant problem, until it wasn't. I was a paramedic back then. Alex Carson. I'd witnessed the chaos firsthand, pulling people from car wrecks, trying to resuscitate those I could. But this was something no CPR could fix. Scavenging for food, I came across a makeshift camp. Tattered tents clustered around a feeble bonfire, its flickering light casting shadows over haggard faces. They spoke in hushed tones, every word dripping with fear and the weight of loss. But amidst the hopelessness, a word caught my attention: sanctuary. They say it's safe, a young woman whispered, cradling a malnourished child, free from those things. A grizzled man scoffed, just another myth. We've all heard of places like that before. They don't end well. I approached them, driven by a mixture of desperation and curiosity. Where is this sanctuary? The woman looked up, her eyes clouded with a mix of hope and disbelief. They say it's underground, deep within the city. Hard to reach but worth the risk. My brother tried. But he never came back. That night, as the fires dimmed and an uneasy sleep took the survivors, I made a decision. The sanctuary was my only hope. The journey would be perilous, and I might be chasing a ghost. But standing still was a death sentence. The following dawn, armed with a meager map drawn in the dirt and a backpack of supplies, I set out. The city loomed ahead, its once proud skyscrapers now mausoleums of the past. As the sun's first rays cast a pale glow over the devastation, my journey to the sanctuary had begun. The days had become a blur since the outbreak. Sunrises and sunsets melded into one as the city's ruins stood silent, except for the haunting moans of the dead. As a former paramedic, I thought I had seen it all: pain, death, despair, but nothing prepared me for this apocalypse. My supplies were dwindling. Each time I scavenged, it became riskier. Zombies lurked in every shadow, waiting for a hint of human scent. During one of these trips, I stumbled upon a small group of survivors. They were a ragtag group, from various walks of life, united by the sheer will to survive. Among them was a mother with her teenage son, a mechanic, and a school teacher. Their faces, etched with the scars of the recent past, told stories of lost families, close encounters, and sleepless nights. While sharing a meager meal around a fire, I heard whispers of a sanctuary. It was said to be a place deep within the city, safe from the undead, with food, clean water, and perhaps most enticing of all, hope. The mechanic, Ben, was the first to speak openly about it. I've heard it on an old radio frequency. They said there's safety behind their walls. But it's not easy to find. Many have tried, and not all have returned. The mother, Claire, added, they say there's a symbol, a mark that guides the way. It's our best shot, but we need to be careful. I was skeptical but intrigued. The idea of a safe haven was too tempting to ignore. I decided to join them on this perilous quest. Our small group became a team, and together, we ventured deeper into the heart of the city. The following days were a testament to the human spirit's resilience. We encountered small groups of zombies, evading them when we could, fighting when we couldn't. Every encounter took its toll, both physically and mentally. The teacher, Mrs. Green, was the first to fall. In an act of sheer bravery, she diverted a horde away from us, sacrificing herself. Her screams echoed in my ears long after they faded. One evening, as we camped in an old bookstore's remnants, we were ambushed by another survivor group. Unlike us, they weren't searching for the sanctuary. They had become predators, living off weaker groups, taking what they wanted. A brutal skirmish ensued, but with Ben's expertise in makeshift weapons and my medical background, we managed to fend them off. Bruised but not broken, we pressed on. Every setback strengthened our resolve. And as days turned into nights and back into days, the symbol Claire had spoken of began to appear, a circle with an arrow pointing downwards, often painted in red. Hope was on the horizon, but we knew the most challenging part of our journey was yet to come. The sanctuary was close, but so was the looming threat of the undead and the horrors that awaited within the safe haven's confines. The dense fog that hung over the city streets was both a blessing and a curse. It provided some cover from roving bands of hostile survivors, but it also masked the creeping undead's approach. We moved as shadows, hiding in plain sight, navigating our way through a labyrinth of destruction. One morning, as we were making our way through an abandoned apartment complex, we found ourselves ambushed by a group of zombies. Their moans filled the air, growing louder as more joined the horde. Outnumbered, our chances of escape seemed bleak. Then, from the shadows, a figure emerged, swift and silent. With deft precision, he took down several zombies, creating a path for our escape. As we ran, he held off the pursuing horde, giving us the time we needed to find safety. When we finally regrouped, our mysterious savior introduced himself as Sam. "Seems you folks could use some help," he remarked, wiping the blood from his blade. His face was rugged, weathered by the hardships of this new world. But his eyes, they held a spark, a flicker of hope. As we shared stories around a makeshift fire, Sam spoke of the sanctuary. "It's real," he confirmed, "but it's not what the rumors make it out to be. There's something off about that place." Despite his warning, the allure of safety was too tempting for us to ignore. Sam agreed to guide us there, but with a condition: "I'll take you to the sanctuary, but once we're there, you need to keep your eyes and ears open. Things aren't always what they seem." Our journey was fraught with challenges. We were running dangerously low on supplies. Hunger and thirst became constant companions, gnawing at our resolve. Every step was a brutal reminder of the world we had lost. But the promise of the sanctuary drove us forward. Sam proved to be an invaluable asset. His knowledge of the city's back streets and shortcuts kept us one step ahead of danger. But as we got closer to our destination, he became more reserved, often lost in thought. One evening, as the city's skyline shimmered under the setting sun, we finally caught our first glimpse of the sanctuary's entrance, a massive, reinforced gate that led to an underground facility. But before we could make our way there, a gang of hostile survivors ambushed us. They were desperate, driven mad by hunger and fear. In a brutal showdown, we fought back, but our numbers dwindled. Claire was severely injured, and Ben didn't make it. With heavy hearts and our hope hanging by a thread, we approached the sanctuary's gates. Would it be the safe haven we had dreamed of, or would it become our tomb? The weight of Sam's earlier warning echoed in my mind as the gates slowly creaked open. The sanctuary awaited, but what secrets did it hold? The gate's iron hinges creaked and groaned as it opened, revealing the entrance to the sanctuary, a cavernous tunnel, dimly lit by fluorescent lights. Despite the gloom, I could feel a change in the air. It was clean, devoid of the rotten stench that permeated the outside world. For a moment, I allowed myself to hope. Maybe the rumors were true. The tunnel led us into a grand atrium, like a modern-day cathedral. Its walls gleamed with pristine white tiles, and the overhead lights cast a warm glow over everything. But the most astonishing sight was the people. Scores of survivors, going about their daily routines, seemingly untouched by the apocalypse above. Children laughed as they played games, couples sat on benches chatting, and an elderly group was engrossed in a game of chess. It was like a time capsule, a slice of life from before everything went to hell. A tall, slender woman approached us. Dressed in a crisp white lab coat, she had a serene look on her face. "Welcome to the sanctuary," she greeted, her voice gentle. "I'm Dr. Eleanor Green, the chief scientist and head of this facility." Sam eyed her warily but remained silent. Dr. Green led us on a tour, showcasing the facility's state-of-the-art amenities, fully stocked medical bays, recreational areas, and even a hydroponic farm. However, it wasn't long before I noticed something unsettling. While the residents looked content, there was a certain emptiness in their eyes, a glazed-over look that suggested they weren't entirely present. When I tried to strike up a conversation, their responses were robotic, rehearsed. That night, as I lay on a surprisingly comfortable bed, the facility's quiet hum was punctuated by soft whispers. Eerie, almost chant-like sounds that seemed to drift through the walls. Every time I tried to pinpoint their origin, they seemed to move, like a ghostly game of hide and seek. The following days were a blur. Dr. Green took a particular interest in Sam and me, often inviting us to dine with her. During these meals, She'd share stories of the sanctuary's inception and how it became a beacon of hope for survivors. But she was always vague about its funding or how they managed to stay so well supplied. One evening, after a particularly lavish dinner, Sam pulled me aside. "Something's off here," he whispered, his eyes darting around. "Have you noticed? The residents, they're docile, almost like they're drugged." His words resonated with my observations. That night, as the whispers returned, curiosity overpowered my caution. I decided to investigate. Creeping through the facility's sterile corridors, I finally located the source, a secluded chamber where several residents sat in a circle, their eyes vacant, chanting in unison. In the room's center stood a massive machine, humming and pulsating with a strange energy. As I looked closer, I noticed cables connecting the machine to the residents, almost like they were being reprogrammed. Suddenly, a hand clamped over my mouth, dragging me into the shadows. Expecting an attacker, I was ready to fight, but it was Sam. "We need to leave now," he hissed. The sanctuary, this supposed haven, was far from what it seemed. And as we prepared to unveil its dark secrets, an uneasy feeling settled in my gut. What horrors lay hidden within these walls? And more importantly, would we survive the revelation? Nights were the worst. In the day, the sanctuary felt like a blessing, but at night, it transformed. The silence wasn't peaceful, it was haunting. Curiosity had always been one of my strongest impulses. And the noises? They made it impossible for me to ignore the burning questions in my mind. One evening, I decided to explore. Following the faint hums and distant shuffling, I came across a door, different from the others. It was thicker, with an electronic lock. I peered through a tiny glass pane. It was dark inside, but I could make out figures moving around. Finding a nearby computer terminal, I decided to snoop. The user was still logged in. Files upon files detailed horrific experiments. I felt sick reading the logs. Humans being turned, not into your usual mindless zombies, but something else. Something more aware, more malicious, and infinitely more dangerous. Pictures depicted humans, or what were once humans, strapped to tables. Machines and tubes connected to their bodies. And then, a name jumped out at me. Sam. There was a before and after picture of him. The transformation was terrifying. Suddenly, a cold hand gripped my shoulder. I spun around, meeting the eyes of one of the emotionless inhabitants of the sanctuary. "You shouldn't be here," he whispered, his voice flat. Reacting on impulse, I smashed the monitor into his face. He crumpled to the ground, giving me a few precious seconds. Panic took over, and I sprinted away, avoiding the corridors I knew would be patrolled. I needed to find Sam. He knew more, he had to. But as I made my way to his quarters, I stumbled upon an even more horrifying sight. Rows of chambers, filled with a greenish liquid. Inside? Humans, suspended, their eyes wide open but vacant. And I recognized some of them, they were the missing survivors who'd been in the sanctuary. I felt a hand tug me into a dark corner. It was Sam, his eyes urgent. "You've seen it, haven't you?" he whispered. "They're creating an army," I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. Sam nodded. "But not of mindless creatures. They're more evolved, more brutal." I shivered, imagining the horror of an intelligent zombie army. "We need to get out," I said. But Sam looked resigned. It might be too late for that. He rolled up his sleeve, revealing a fresh bite mark, oozing with dark blood. "I tried to resist their experiments, Alex. But they got me." The weight of his words crushed my spirit. But there was no time to grieve. We needed a plan, and we needed it fast. Little did I know, the brutal horrors that awaited us in our escape attempt. Dread wrapped around me like a vice. The pristine walls of the sanctuary now felt suffocating, their cleanliness a stark contrast to the vile secrets they concealed. Every step within the sanctuary was like wading through a murky pool of deceit. The residents, who I once envied for their serenity, were nothing more than puppets, and Sam, my mysterious savior, was one of the puppeteer's main acts. One evening, as the cold blue hue of the facility's lights cast long shadows, Dr. Green summoned me to her office. Her workspace was sterile, adorned with files, equipment, and a large window overlooking the atrium. I could see the residents below, including Sam, who was having a hushed conversation with a few others. "Alex," Dr. Green began, her tone even, "I understand you've stumbled upon our little project." I clenched my fists, struggling to control the anger boiling within. "Your project is monstrous. You're playing God in a world that has already seen too much horror." She smiled, the gesture devoid of warmth. "It's the next phase of evolution, Alex. The world as we knew it is gone. We're merely ushering in the new era." "But why? Why manipulate and experiment on people? Why, Sam?" The weight of betrayal was heavy, my voice cracking with emotion. Dr. Green moved closer, her gaze piercing. "Sam was the first. The perfect blend of human intelligence and the relentless drive of the undead. He's the prototype of our new world order." The revelation was a gut punch. My savior, the man who'd brought me to this twisted haven, was their greatest triumph. "You're deluded if you think you can control these creatures," I spat. "You misunderstand, Alex," she whispered, leaning in. "We don't want to control them. We want to become them." The implication of her words was terrifying. They weren't just creating an army, they wanted to join it, to lead it. Just then, an alarm blared, red lights flashing. The facility went into lockdown. Over the intercom, a voice announced, "Breach detected. All personnel, report to your stations." Dr. Green's face contorted in rage. "What have you done?" But it wasn't my doing. Through the window, I saw Sam leading a group of residents, fighting off the facility's guards. It was a revolt. Without waiting for a response, I bolted from the room, making my way to Sam. Together, amidst the chaos, we joined forces with other awakened residents. But the truth weighed heavily on me. Sam was part of their experiment, and time was running out for him. As we fought our way through the facility, I turned to him, searching for answers. "Why, Sam? Why did you bring me here?" He paused, anguish evident in his eyes. "I thought they could be stopped, Alex. I believed that if someone like you, with your resilience and will, saw what they were doing, you'd find a way to end it. But as the brutal reality of our situation became clearer, I realized that the sanctuary wasn't just a trap for its residents. It was a trap for humanity. The true fight for survival was just beginning." The alarm's shrill cry echoed through the sterile halls, a constant reminder of our desperate situation. Sam and I moved quickly, our footsteps punctuating the distant screams and gunshots. The facility had transformed into a war zone, the residents rising against their oppressors. "We need to get to the exit, now," Sam shouted over the noise, pulling me into a dimly lit corridor. Every turn we took led to more chaos. Guards were battling residents, some were already on the ground, groaning as they transitioned to the undead. But what truly horrified me were the intelligent zombies, their eyes holding a glint of wicked understanding. We reached a metal door, which Sam identified as a back exit. It was guarded by 2 soldiers, their eyes cold and determined. "Stay behind me," Sam whispered, charging forward with a ferocity I'd never seen before. He grappled with the first guard, using his enhanced strength to overpower him. I took on the second, landing a solid blow with a metal pipe I'd picked up earlier. In a matter of minutes, the path was clear. But as we stepped into the open, the chilling realization hit: a group of intelligent zombies awaited us, their leader being none other than Dr. Green. Her eyes were cold, devoid of the human touch, a testament to her transformation. "You thought you could escape, Alex? After all we've done for you?" Her voice was calm, but it sent shivers down my spine. Sam stepped forward, shielding me. "We won't be part of your sick experiment, Green." She smiled wickedly. "You already are, Sam. Or have you forgotten?" In a swift move, Sam lunged at Dr. Green. The two clashed fiercely, exchanging blows that could kill a normal human. The other zombies joined the fray, and the corridor turned into a bloodbath. "Go, Alex!" Sam yelled, locked in combat with Dr. Green. But I hesitated, unable to leave him behind. That was my mistake. One of the zombies lunged at me, its sharp teeth sinking into my arm. Pain erupted, and the world began to spin. Seeing my peril, Sam let out a gut-wrenching scream and pushed Dr. Green away. He rushed to my side, fighting off the zombie that attacked me. But in his attempt to save me, he was overwhelmed. "No!" I screamed, trying to help, but it was too late. Sam, the one who guided me to this cursed sanctuary, was being torn apart by the monsters he once hoped to escape. In his final moments, he locked eyes with mine, a silent plea for me to survive. Tears blurred my vision as I pushed forward, fighting off any zombie that dared come close. Sam's sacrifice would not be in vain. I had to escape, to let the world know of the atrocities happening in this so-called sanctuary. But as I emerged into the daylight, a sea of undead awaited. My heart sank. This was it, the final stand. Blinding sunlight stung my eyes as I stumbled onto the desolate streets. The once bustling city had become a labyrinth of shattered glass, rusted cars, and gnarled weeds pushing through the cracks. As my vision cleared, I realized I wasn't alone. A vast horde of zombies slowly shuffled towards me, their grotesque faces twisted in hunger. Among them were the intelligent zombies, eyes sharp and malicious, their movements calculated. I clutched my makeshift weapon, a broken pipe, and steadied my breath. Flashbacks of my paramedic training rushed back. Stay calm in the face of danger, always think on your feet. The first few zombies lunged, and I swung wildly, taking them down. But for each that fell, 10 more approached. The intelligent zombies were more cautious, studying my movements and waiting for an opening. A sharp pain shot through my bitten arm, its wound turning an angry shade of purple. Poisoned, weakened, and outnumbered, I knew this was a battle I couldn't win. But I'd fight to the end. A deafening roar sounded from a distance, the cry of something monstrous. From a side alley emerged a creature I hadn't seen before. Bigger, more terrifying, and certainly one of the facility's experimental horrors. Its eyes locked onto mine, and it charged. My instincts kicked in. Using the surrounding environment, I set traps, luring clusters of zombies into pitfalls and impromptu barricades. But the monster was relentless. With each step, it drew closer, the ground trembling beneath its weight. I made my final stand atop a dilapidated bus, swinging my pipe at any creature that dared climb aboard. The intelligent zombies formed a circle, chanting in an eerie unison, their voices echoing the malice of their creator. Then, the monstrous creature leapt, pinning me down. Its massive jaws inched closer to my face, saliva dripping onto my cheeks. I thought of Sam, of the sanctuary's false promise, and the life I once knew. This was it. With one last surge of strength, I thrust the pipe into its eye. It howled in pain, loosening its grip just enough for me to wriggle free. But the intelligent zombies closed in, their hands reaching out to claim their prize. I fought with everything I had, taking down as many as I could. But eventually, sheer numbers overwhelmed me. As their cold hands tightened around my limbs and neck, the world faded to black. Alex's journey had come to its brutal end. A haunting stillness enveloped the city. Amidst the decaying ruins and lingering mist, an eerie silhouette stood, its presence both commanding and menacing. It was me, Alex, but not the Alex who once saved lives and sought refuge. The metamorphosis was unlike anything I'd ever felt. The pain and anguish of my former self had faded, replaced by a cold, calculating clarity. My memories remained, a cruel reminder of my humanity, but they were distorted, like viewing life through a shattered mirror. As I wandered the desolate streets, a newfound purpose drove my steps. The sanctuary's leader, with his twisted ambitions, had not only conquered my body but had also imprisoned my mind. His voice echoed in my head, commanding me to rally the intelligent zombies, to organize them, to prepare for the new world order he envisioned. My enhanced senses picked up distant murmurs, survivors, perhaps. With a predatory grace, I led my horde towards the noise. Gone were the days of seeking sanctuary or yearning for human connection. Now, my only goal was to hunt, convert, and expand our dominion. In a secluded corner of the city, I stumbled upon a camp of survivors. Their feeble defenses were no match for us. One by one, they fell, joining our ranks. However, amidst the chaos, a familiar face caught my eye, a young girl with wide, terrified eyes. In her, I saw a glimmer of my past, a fleeting moment of compassion. For a split second, the old Alex resurfaced, filled with remorse and pain. But the sanctuary's dark influence swiftly quashed that emotion. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months. The city, once a symbol of human civilization, had become our kingdom. Our numbers grew, and with each passing day, the leader's vision inched closer to reality. But deep down, a fragment of my old self remained, buried under layers of manipulation and control. It was a small beacon of hope, a whisper of rebellion, suggesting that perhaps, one day, humanity could rise again and reclaim its lost world. For now, though, I roamed the streets, a king among monsters, forever trapped in the sanctuary's malevolent embrace. I was once a thriving radio jockey for WXY-99, the most popular radio station in the heart of New York City. As the world crumbled around us from the zombie pandemic, I decided to stay behind at my beloved station, feeling the weight of responsibility to keep broadcasting, to keep offering solace, guidance, or even just the comforting hum of another human voice. As days turned into weeks, supplies dwindled. Venturing out became a high-risk endeavor. On one of these trips, I met Lily, a woman about my age with sharp, amber eyes, who claimed to be a former sound engineer. Grateful for the company and her skills, I invited her to join me at the station. One day, I woke up to the soft hum of the radio, with Lily's voice filtering through the speakers. She was singing, a haunting lullaby that I'd never heard. Oddly, her voice had a raspy, disjointed quality to it. When I entered the studio, her back was to me, and I watched in horror as she slowly turned, revealing half her face torn off. How had I not noticed before? She wasn't alive, she was one of them. Yet, somehow, she retained a semblance of her humanity, continuing to broadcast. I started to discreetly research. Listening to old broadcasts, I found subtle hints, moments where her voice seemed off, or when she'd slipped in peculiar messages. Stay indoors. Trust no one. Keep listening. But among those recordings, I found something even more disturbing. My own voice, distorted and cold, instructing survivors on where to find shelter, leading them straight into zombie hordes. I started to discreetly research. Listening to old broadcasts, I found subtle hints, moments where her voice seemed off, or when she'd slipped in peculiar messages. Stay indoors. Trust no one. Keep listening. But among those recordings, I found something even more disturbing. My own voice, distorted and cold, instructing survivors on where to find shelter, leading them straight into zombie hordes. My final broadcast wasn't one of hope, but a warning. With trembling hands and tears streaming down my face, I warned listeners of the trap, urging them to stay away. As my strength waned, I felt hands on me. It was Lily, or the monster she had become, pulling me away from the microphone. The world faded as I felt the bite on my neck, the brutal end I had tried to avoid. The first time I heard about the mysterious virus on the news, I didn't take it seriously. It was said to affect animals, especially pets. As someone who lived alone in a compact city apartment, my silver-furred cat, Misty, was more than just a pet, she was family. I remember chuckling, thinking how my lazy, pudgy cat could ever be a threat. That naive perspective wouldn't last long. The city around me pulsed with life. The sound of traffic, neighbors' chatter, and the distant hum of the metropolis were a constant backdrop. But, as days turned into weeks, the news grew more unsettling. Pets were acting out, becoming aggressive. Warnings advised keeping them indoors. Misty, always the queen of her domain, began to act strangely. It started with subtle things, a hiss at the window, a refusal to eat her favorite salmon treats, and a distant, almost glazed look in her luminous green eyes. One morning, I found a dead bird at my doorstep, its neck twisted unnaturally. "Hunting isn't like you," I whispered to her, concern lining my face. News channels were flooded with videos of pets turning on their owners. A neighbor's poodle, known for its adorable antics, had attacked its family. The city was in a state of panic, with rumors that many were abandoning their pets, hoping to escape their transformed, violent versions. Every night, I'd lock all the doors, pulling Misty close. "We're in this together," I'd murmur into her soft fur, praying the situation would normalize. Then came the incident that turned my life upside down. A transformed bird, its eyes blood red and beak sharp like razors, crashed into my living room window in an attack frenzy. Before I could react, Misty lunged at it with a ferocity I'd never seen. Feathers flew, and the room echoed with their primal screams. By the time the bird lay lifeless, Misty was injured, a deep gash marring her side. I rushed to her, but the cat that looked back at me wasn't the Misty I knew. She scratched me, her once gentle paw drawing blood from my arm. Heart pounding, I barricaded myself in my bedroom. The once comforting purrs of Misty were now menacing growls from the other side of the door. Desperation led me to scour the internet, where whispers spoke of a cure developed in a lab on the city's outskirts. Determination replaced fear. If there was even a sliver of hope, I'd take it. Preparing a makeshift weapon and first aid kit, I braced myself to venture out. The city streets, once bustling, were now filled with grotesque sights. A pack of transformed pets, including my friend's golden retriever, roamed with vacant, predatory eyes. Every step outside was a dance with death. Reaching the rumored lab, what awaited was not what I'd hoped for. The cure was a serum, but not to reverse the effects. Instead, it was a way to put pets down without pain. I grabbed a vial, tears blinding me, the weight of the decision heavy on my shoulders. Returning to my apartment was a nightmare. The door was ajar, and transformed pets had invaded, with Misty, now a grotesque version of herself, leading them. I managed to isolate her, whispering apologies and memories of our time together as I administered the serum. Her growls quieted, and the once vibrant life in her eyes dimmed forever. I barely escaped, the cacophony of the monstrous pets echoing behind. The city of memories was now a land of nightmares. My body survived, but my heart bore the scars of the terrible loss. The world had changed, and I, along with it.